Some video games go beyond controversy, crossing lines that lead to outrage, and even outright bans of multiple countries. These games don't just push boundaries, they shatter them, sparking debates and leaving a lasting impact on the gaming community and the media. Today, we're diving into the most controversial and banned games that have shocked players around the world. As we get into this video, make sure to like and subscribe for a cookie. Back in 2015, something truly disturbing made its way from the dark web. It came from an anonymous user only known as ZK, and what they unleashed was a first-person horror game, unlike anything most people had ever seen. The game, titled Sad Satan, drops the player into a nightmarish black and white maze, a claustrophobic hellscape with no clear goal, no real gameplay mechanics, and yet an overwhelming sense of dread. The main menu alone is enough to make you feel unsettled. There's nothing more than the game title Sad Satan and a basic startup screen. But what really sets the tone is the audio, a reverse version of I Love Beijing Tiananmen, sung by children. It's a simple way to unnerve the player, sure, but there's something deeply unsettling about hearing a demented version of a song sung by children. It's a song I see used in a lot of horror memes, and it's often tied to a really controversial event that happened in Beijing Tiananmen that I don't know if I could talk about. Anyways, I know I've heard the song like 1,000 times, but yet it's still unsettling to me, even being used in a cheap manner of sorts. As you begin navigating the maze, there are no monsters chasing you initially, no traditional jump scares. Instead, the real horror comes from what flashes across the screen, deeply disturbing, often graphic imagery. Some are photos of real violence, beheadings, abuse, grotesque injuries, while others are far more depraved. According to early reports, the original version of Sad Satan allegedly included images of child exploitation and abuse, which would explain why the game quickly became blacklisted and largely inaccessible. One of the most shocking images is that of Jimmy Savile, the disgraced British TV personality who was posthumously revealed to have been a prolific child abuser. His image, smiling surrounded by children, appears suddenly, creating a jarring contrast between innocence and the unspeakable. It's this blending of real-world horror and digital horror that makes Sad Satan feel less of a game and more of a psychological weapon. And I can see how this whole entire concept is intriguing to someone. It's like a real-life creepypasta, which is why I think this whole entire situation and video game itself garnered a bunch of attention. So where exactly did this real-life creepypasta horror game Sad Satan even originate from, and was it even real? Sad Satan first surfaced on the internet when it was posted on June 25th, 2015 from the channel Obscure Horror Corner. Wow, that was kind of hard to say. Try to say that 3 times fast. Obscure Horror Corner, Obscure Horror Corner, I can't do it. Interestingly enough, the channel beforehand had posted numerous gameplay videos of different RPG-styled horror games and other surrealistic video games such as LSD Simulator. So seeing a game titled Sad Satan being posted on this channel shouldn't bat any eyes. In the video Obscure Horror Corner uploaded, no graphic images were shown, but what was shown were the images mentioned previously with Jimmy Savile and other pedophiles, as the video still wouldn't be uploaded to this day, but it still made the whole game mysterious. And at the time, the game didn't garner that much attention until the owner of Obscure Horror Corner would do an interview with Kotaku, a video game website blog that was arguably huge back in the day. In the Kotaku article, A Horror Game That May Be Hidden in the Darkest Corners of the Internet, we find out that the owner of Obscure Horror Corner, Jamie, had found this mysterious game from an Onion site posted by an anonymous user only known as ZK, which is only accessible through the Tor network, short for the Onion router, and sites that are often accessed through the Tor network are part of what's known as the dark web. And yes, the same dark web where people could purchase really illegal stuff that some people, or I think almost all people, shouldn't have access to, making the eerie aura of Sad Satan even more ominous and disturbing. But what makes the claim that this game might be fake is that in the original video Jamie posted on his channel, in the description, he included a link to the Onion site he had downloaded the game from. But there was a flaw. The link contained a number 9, which isn't valid in Onion addresses. Onion links use base 32 encoding, which only includes lowercase letters in the numbers 2 through 7. That means the link Jamie originally shared in his description couldn't have existed because it included the number 9. Many people soon began speculating that perhaps Jamie had fabricated his own game to bring some attention to his channel, which surely did work. The Sad Satan videos he did garnered way more attention than his previous videos. But this story would take even a darker turn. A cloned version of Sad Satan was posted on July 7th, 2015 on 4chan by an anonymous poster who claimed to be ZK, the one from Jamie's story, who had originally posted the game. In this cloned version, the gameplay was nearly the same as from Jamie's channel. However, there was far more graphic content, including actual gore and cheese pizza. And to salt the wound even more, any users who downloaded this file were hit with malware to the computers, making their computers really damaged. Some people couldn't even turn on the computers after downloading this file. And I remember there were a select few streamers who downloaded this file from 4chan, which I don't think is the brightest idea, and actually played this game. And when they were streaming this game, photos of CP were flashed on the screen, probably live to thousands of people. The whole entire Sad Satan phenomenon was pretty bad, and I feel really bad for the people who streamed this game, but they should have known beforehand what the whole entire story was about this game. And of course, downloading anything from 4chan, you gotta be out of your mind. Thankfully, many users reported this file to the FBI, which caused an investigation and put a ban to all the download links. To this day, there hasn't been a clear answer from Obscure Horror Corner, as he hasn't posted anything ever since the Sad Satan videos. However, there would be a lot of copycat games of Sad Satan, either being a more tame version, such as being purely a scary maze game, or outright showing the most gruesome photos as you traverse a dark maze. I did put a content warning for sensitive topics in the beginning of this video, but as the list goes on, there's going to be mentionings of a lot of stuff that probably isn't friendly for YouTube. So this is the final warning, because some of these video game titles are just really insane, and the concepts of these video games are really out there and are used by psychopaths. Anyways, let's go on to active shooter. In 2018 alone, the United States witnessed over 20 mass shootings, each one leaving deep scars on the nation. And yet on June 6th of the same year, a game was scheduled to release on Steam that would ignite a firestorm of outrage. The title, Active Shooter, which was, in a last minute change, changed to Standoff. At first glance, the game might have appeared as another tactical shooter like Rainbow Six Siege, but its description made the controversy crystal clear. Active shooter, the simulation. Pick your role, gear up and fight or destroy. Be the good guy or the bad guy, the choice is yours. Only in active shooter will you be able to pick the role of an elite SWAT member, or the actual shooter, lead your team, extract civilians, and neutralize the shooter. It didn't take long for people to react. The game allowed players to either save lives as law enforcement, or take them as a perpetrator of a mass shooting. The concept was so disturbing to many that it quickly drew attention from national news outlets, sparked massive backlash, and was even blacklisted from Steam altogether. Even before its launch, the game was destined to be blacklisted, as an online petition would be started before its release day. Stephanie Robinette, an activist and a mother from Washington, would initiate a Change.org petition upon hearing about active shooter's inevitable release, calling for the cancellation of the game ever being published on Steam. Big news outlets caught attention of this quickly, most likely due to how many mass shootings there were in 2018, and just how controversial the game was being spread through social media. The petition, Valve, do not launch active shooter, a school shooter video game, ended up reaching victory status with more than 250,000 supporters. And with the massive influx of media attention now on Steam, and the gigantic traction the petition had gained, Valve Corporation would remove the game from Steam prior to its launch, making the game impossible to play, unless someone was able to dig up the files from like a mega link or something. A spokesperson from Valve issued this statement to Deadline, an online news site. "We have removed the developer Revived Games and publisher Acid from Steam. This developer and publisher is in fact a person calling himself Atta, who had previously been removed from last fall when he was operating as VC Interactive and Elusive Team. Atta is a troll with a history of customer abuse, publishing copyrighted material, and user review manipulation. His subsequent return under new business names was a fact that came to light as we investigated the controversy around his upcoming title. We are not going to do business with people who act like this towards our customers or Valve." Now this next entry in this video really makes this whole entire controversial thing really controversial. You'll see for yourself as we get into Grape Day. Grape Day. I won't be saying the full title of this game, but I'll provide some screenshots and gameplay footage from YouTubers who will be credited, as well as news articles about this game, Grape Day. This cancelled game, thankfully never released, was marketed as an indie adult visual novel set during the beginning of a zombie apocalypse. However, the real horror wasn't the zombies, it was the protagonist, the person the player plays as. A character described as an insane serial killer and rapist. From what I've found in articles and interviews, the developer known as Jake or Desklamp explained that players could harass, kill, and assault women as they progress the story. The game was briefly listed on Steam in 2019 with an expected release date on April, but it was blacklisted from the platform before it could even be downloaded or purchased. To give you an idea of just how disturbing this game was intended to be, it contained over 500 images of characters and more than 7,000 words, allowing players to commit violent acts on women. During development, Jake reportedly removed a scene involving an infant to avoid content that could be considered child exploitation. And naturally, a game like this wouldn't go unnoticed by the media, because of its really insensitive content to say the least. Outrage spread across the internet, and major news outlets like The Hollywood Reporter and Polygon published articles calling for the game to be cancelled before it was released. Petitions also circulated, garnering thousands of signatures in protest. Rightfully, Steam ultimately blacklisted the game before it could reach the public, issuing the following statement. "Much of our policy around what we distribute is, and must be, reactionary. We simply have to wait and see what comes to us via Steam Direct. We then have to make a judgment call about any risk it puts to Valve, our developer partners, or our customers. After significant fact-finding and discussion, we think Grape Day poses unknown cost and risk and therefore won't be on Steam." Despite the blacklisting, the developer Deskplant attempted to get the game released through other channels and other sites, but after the immense backlash and controversy, his efforts ultimately failed. The game now is nowhere to be found. No video game outlet sites are even listing it, and even the Wikipedia page for Deskplant, the developer, has been completely scrubbed. The next video game on this list is just as controversial as the last, and again, I won't be saying the game title, because you'll see for yourself in just a second. Similar to the previous entry in this video, it's not hard to guess why Grape Day was banned in many countries. Released on April 21st, 2006 in Japan, the game's disturbing premise revolves around playing as a sex offender with a history of crimes. And considering the game's title, you can probably guess to yourself what exactly those crimes were prior to the game ever taking place. Yeah, I am having a bit of a hard time reading through my script and describing these games with mentionings of grape in the title. The goal is to harass and assault women, including a mother and her two children, aged 17 and 12. One of these children is Aoi, and is responsible for the protagonist's arrest. And the game's narrative essentially follows a twisted revenge story. The game quickly faced international controversy and was blacklisted in several countries, including Australia, Germany, and the United Kingdom. While Grape Day was not officially banned in the United States, it was assigned an adults-only rating by the ESRB. As a result, major retailers and digital platforms refused to sell the game, making it effectively inaccessible to most consumers in the US. Despite the overwhelming criticism, there was a small vocal group of defenders who argued that if rape is considered a lesser crime than murder, then why is there no similar outcry over video games where the objective is to kill enemies? In response to the controversy, the developers and publishers of Great Ballet removed all references to the game from their website and ceased distribution entirely, likely to avoid further legal and social backlash. Now, the controversy for this next entry isn't as of an insensitive topic as the last entries were, and the reason it is considered controversy and was banned in some countries will most likely shock you. The controversy surrounding the psychological horror game Devotion might surprise you, considering the usual reasons games get banned. Devotion, which I first saw Jacksepticeye play, is set in Taiwan during the 1980s. The game received widespread praise, but it was removed from Steam and banned in China, and the reason behind it is truly unexpected. In the game, players can inspect and see various objects, one of which was a fulu, a talismanic script, used to ward off evil spirits or invoke an incantation. Unfortunately, one of the Fulu posters in the game contained a reference to the Chinese president Xi Jinping and compared him to Winnie the Pooh, a meme that is heavily censored in China and often carries political sensitivity. Chinese players took offense to this, which led to a review bombing campaign on Steam, dramatically changing the game score from overwhelmingly positive to mostly negative. In response to the controversy, Devotion was delisted from Steam, and Red Candle Games, the developers, issued an apology. Their statement said, "For the past 4 months, the art asset incident related to Devotion has caused immeasurable harm to Red Candle Games and our partner. We would like to offer our most sincere apology to all impacted teams and personnel. Red Candle and his partner are assuming all responsibilities for the losses. We will not stop in our endeavor to prevent the damage from worsening." After the game's delisting, Red Candle Games released physical copies of Devotion exclusively in Taiwan for a limited time. They also attempted to make the game available on GOG.com, a digital platform similar to Steam. However, after facing threats from Chinese players, GOG decided not to proceed with the release, effectively cancelling it. For nearly 2 years, Devotion was stuck in limbo. Eventually in 2021, Red Candle Games launched its own digital storefront, allowing the game to be sold without the fear of review bombing or potential takedowns. The next few entries in this video will be games that are more popularly known to be controversial and banned in several countries, and they won't be as much of a deep dive as I did in the previous entries as well. So without further ado, let's get into Punisher. The Punisher was released on January 16th, 2005, developed by Volition, and it didn't take long for the ESRB, or Entertainment Software Rating Board, to slap it with an adults-only rating. That's basically a death sentence for most games. Retailers like GameStop, Walmart, and Best Buy voluntarily enforce ESRB ratings, and they almost never stock adults-only rated games, so if the Punisher stayed that way, it would have been nearly impossible to sell. If you're familiar with Marvel's anti-hero, you know the Punisher doesn't exactly play family-friendly. He uses extreme violence to achieve his goals, and that's portrayed explicitly in this game. One of the most controversial features? The interrogation scenes. You could grab enemies and either use them as human shields or hit a button to initiate some of the most brutal interrogations seen in a mainstream video game at the time. In the North American version, these scenes were censored with a black and white filter. In the UK version, the camera simply fades away before the kill, but Australia took it even further. Several scenes were flat out removed after the game was originally banned there for excessive violence. And yes, for those of you wondering, there are mods online that completely remove the censors and the filters from the game, allowing you to play the game as Volition initially intended. Now the next entry or video game that will be on this list is probably one you've heard a lot and that I've heard a lot while growing up, and that is of course Hatred. Anytime discussions about video game controversies come up, Hatred is always mentioned. Released in 2014, it's a top-down shooter where the entire point is to go on a rampage, and before the game even starts, it hits you with an over-the-top, edgy intro. Actually, I think I can play a clip of that now.
My name is not important. What is important is what I'm going to do. I just fucking hate this world and these human worms feasting on its carcass. My whole life is just cold, bitter hatred. And I always wanted to die violently. This is the time of vengeance, and no life is worth saving. And I will put in the grave as many as I can. It's time for me to kill. And it's time for me to die.
So yeah, that intro slash trailer was so over the top and over explicitly edgy that it just became a meme. No one took it serious, but at the same time that intro gave Hatred a reputation of being possibly one of the most controversial games that come out at the time. In the game, you play as a character on a violent rampage, armed with everything from Glock 17s and M16s to flamethrowers, rocket launchers, and grenades. Your targets, civilians, police officers, and eventually the military. In the game's story, if you can call it that, it basically ends with the main character blowing up a nuclear power plant, and yeah, that's pretty much it. He just commits genocide. Despite the controversy, Hatred wasn't banned in the US, but it was banned in Australia and Germany, two countries known for having stricter regulations on violent media. Australia in particular bans a fair amount of games, and it came up again recently when the classification board refused to classify the upcoming Silent Hill F. If no changes are made, the game might be banned too, just like what happened in 2008 when Silent Hill Homecoming had to be toned down to release in Australia. But back to Hatred, it was no surprise that the game drew a ton of media backlash. Polygon ran an article titled "The Worst Trailer of the Year, Revels in Slaughtering Innocents," and PC Magazine questioned whether the game would even make it to release because of its ultra-violent gameplay, and yet it did release. Despite all the controversy, Hatred hit the market, and surprisingly, it still holds a very positive review rating on Steam to this day. The Postal series has been a major topic of conversation in the gaming world, especially when it comes to controversy. If you're familiar with older Let's Play YouTubers, chances are you've seen at least one of these games being featured in their videos. The controversy surrounding the series mainly stems from its dark humor, violent gameplay, and over-the-top absurdities. The first Postal, released in 1997, was developed by Running with Scissors. Players took on the role of the Postal Dude, who embarks on a violent rampage against civilians. The game's story suggests that the protagonist is mentally ill and schizophrenic, believing that something is infecting the residents of his town, known as Paradise, and the only way to free them is by killing them. This dark premise set the tone for the game, with its hellish startup menu and eerie music. It's also worth noting that the term Postal was inspired by the real-life going postal incidents of the 90s. The phrase originated in 1993 when the St. Petersburg Times used it for the first time to describe a tragic incident at a Florida post office. A postal worker went on a shooting spree, killing 3 co-workers before taking his own life. This event, along with similar occurrences, led to the coining of the term going postal to describe violent outbursts in the workplace, particularly in post offices. The game's reception was mixed. Some video game review sites like GameSpot gave it a 6.6 out of 10, calling it a fun ride, but noting that there was something morbidly wrong with the protagonist. Meanwhile, news agencies like SFGate criticized the violent nature of the game, but still acknowledged its sales success. The Postal game faced bans in several countries, including Australia, New Zealand, and Germany, particularly for its violent content. However, from reading online forums, I read that some users found ways to bypass this. Then came Postal 2 in 2003. This game moved towards a more comedic, absurd tone, allowing players to complete tasks like getting milk or picking up a paycheck, tasks that could be performed without resorting to violence. However, the game still allowed for morally questionable actions, such as using a cat as a silencer or urinating on people. It was also laden with dark satirical humor, including mockery of religion and terrorist figures. This game garnered even more attention, especially for its controversial elements. Postal 2 was banned in New Zealand, where possessing or distributing the game is still considered a criminal offense, punishable by up to 10 years in prison and a fine of $50,000. It was also banned in Australia in 2005, but they quietly lifted the ban in 2013. Other countries including Sweden, Germany, France, and Malaysia also imposed restrictions due, of course, to the game's controversial content. Despite the backlash, the Postal series remains a polarizing topic in gaming. Its mix of dark humor and shocking violence continues to spark debates about the limits of video game content, with some defending the games as satire and others criticizing them for promoting harmful behavior, mostly coming from news agencies. What's clear is that the Postal series pushed boundaries in ways that few other games dare to, and its legacy in the world of video game censorship is undeniable. So out of all the games we covered today, they were all pretty controversial in their own right for some pretty obvious reasons. Do you think that most of these games were trying to push boundaries for the sake of it? Or were they trying to make some sort of cruel statement about society and culture? But yeah, some of the games we covered today were pretty out there, like Grape Day and Grape Lay. Both of those games were just pushing the limits to the absolute extreme. While games like Postal question the mental stability of certain people in society, what exactly pushed their buttons for them to go postal? Do you think that there's a line that games shouldn't cross at all? Even if some people argue that it's just part of the art form. Anyways, if you enjoyed this deep dive into some of the most controversial and banned games, make sure to like and subscribe for future content. Thank you all for watching and make sure to stay around because I'll see you in the next video.